Good morning, beautiful wives. Welcome back to the Respect Dare 40 Days to a Deeper Connection with God and your husband. All right, so today's Dare is Dare 18 and it's called Fighting Fair. The verse is: a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Um, just like the other day that was about the mouth, right? Me and my big mouth. This is where it, where I well, let me rephrase that. I believe that there are multiple areas of life in which we have to be intentional in order to continue in the good path. This specific area, the area of speaking gently and being intentional with my words, is an area where I am in constant work. um, it's not just that I need to be intentional, it's more than that. Right? I need to be extra intentional, and I need to be always seeking growth in this area, because if I'm being very honest and very sincere, my default, um, it's not to be gentle with my words. My default is to be aggressive with my words. And that is not who I am, right? I am gentle because I have the fruit of the Spirit. I just need to intentionally cultivate that. So I wanted to share that with you because I think that sometimes, we think we've done so much progress, and then we read something like this and we're like, oh crap, I don't know that I'm there yet. And we have a tendency to think that the progress we've made is not legitimate, but it is, right? The progress we've made is legitimate, and the progress that we make every single day is legitimate, and just because we failed to show or make that progress one day does not take away everything else we've done, and I know that I've said this before, but I love to emphasize this, and I love to remind ourselves, I love to remind myself of this, because this is real. Sometimes we are discouraged, and that discouragement wants to take away everything we've done so far, and that's not the case, and we cannot allow that to happen, because that brings us hopelessness, right? So we're not hopeless, we're hope filled, we're filled with hope. So anyways, in this there, she goes on to say that they were talking about a movie that they had watched. And Chris, which is the woman, says, I don't think they did a very good job with the woman, she said. Um, and then her husband agrees and says, and it says, yes, it was all about how the man needed a change, but the wife was the one that was having an affair. And this is a delicate subject to me, and I believe that when there is an affair, whether that's a full-blown affair or whether that's an emotional affair, uh, I believe they're both responsible for it. Yeah. But the one who chose to have that affair is the one who needs to take responsibility for it, right? And does the husband or the wife, the one that was not having an affair, do they have a responsibility as to why the one who was having an affair was taken to that place? Absolutely, because the marriage is together, right? So if my husband is having an affair, it's certainly because he's not 100% satisfied with everything that he's getting. He's either feeling disrespected or there is something lacking, right? And I'm responsible for that unless he never communicated, right? But for the most part, they do communicate. For the most part, we do communicate what we need and what we want. But like she said, there was a point in time that and I understand this is a controversial subject. You can message me in private if you disagree. It's totally fine, and you can comment here too. But anyways, and we don't have time to go into in very much depth into this, right? But again, she said that she had communicated so many times. She asked him, do you feel respected? He said yes. And he asked her, do you feel loved? And she said, no, I don't. And when he asked why, she's amazed. It's like, bro, what do you mean why? Like I've told you a million times. But the thing is that she had done it in every way she knew how: complained, nagged, reminded, joked, emailed, coached, begged, cried, and finally she gave up, right? And doesn't that happen sometimes, right? Doesn't that happen that we communicate in every way we know how, and when we still don't see a change and when we still don't see a response, we give up? Why? Because why am I going to keep on doing something that you clearly are showing no interest in understanding, right? So what happened is that she gave up on feeling loved, but she never gave up on respecting him, and that I can um, take my hats off to her and really respect, right? Because a lot of times when we give up on what we are trying to communicate that is important to us, we also give up on part, at least, of what is important to our husbands as far as how they feel respected, and when that happens, then that's when the marriage starts going downhill, right? When we don't give up like she didn't, we continue to grow because at least one side of it is doing the effort, right? And even though she gave up on feeling loved, she never gave up on respecting. So eventually he came around and he understood, when she was able to communicate without expectations, because the thing is that when we are nagging, complaining, reminding, joking, emailing, and coaching, we are doing it with the expectation that they're going to do what we need them to do the way that we need them to do. But when she finally gave up, but she never gave up on the respect, she communicated it in a way that he understood, because there was no expectations and no agenda behind her communication. And I thought that was so powerful. I was crying as I was reading this devotional because she truly understood that respecting him, it's a part of who God called her to be and what God called her to do. So she needs to do it to the best of her ability, regardless of the expectations, regardless of what he's doing and not doing, and that is hard. Let me tell you, that is hard to do. I have been in a place where I have given up, the expectations, and I have given up, the emotional connection and feeling loved in an emotional level from my husband. And although I didn't give up respect altogether, there were still a lot of things that I was doing, and because I had understood that that was my part of the deal, it wasn't in full. My whole heart was no longer there because I had given up, and therefore the respect that I had was falling short. And again, I didn't give up on the respect altogether because I understood that was my responsibility. But when I gave up on feeling loved and emotionally connected, automatically part of the respect that was attached to that went down the drill, you know, and that's what brought us to a place where we should have never have been, you know, and it's because he didn't know what to do or how to do it, you know, and I gave up on something that I knew to do, you know. So it's not whose fault it is what is my responsibility in this, you know, because I knew better and I didn't do better, you know. Maybe he wasn't doing better because he didn't know better, you know, but I knew better and I didn't know and I didn't do better, right? So I think that that's a great responsibility, you know, because at the end of the day, I have to respond to God, not to my husband, right? And that was my responsibility. So, anyways, that was very deep for me, and I wanted to share all of those thoughts with you guys. And then the bottom line is loving communication is gentle, honest, and without malice or anger. When wives get the respect piece right and are more discerning about what they say, their husbands hear more clearly. I love that. You know, when we communicate right and when we communicate with respect, with no agenda and no expectations, our husbands hear it more clearly. I love that. You know, and like I said, this is an area where I am constantly growing, where I am constantly developing myself and constantly seeking discerning from God to do better in. So, yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys. I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. That's what we had for today. I'll see you tomorrow.